Hello and welcome to another 31 Days of Horror 2016 video. Toronto After Dark edition. Yes, it is the Sunday of the festival, October 16th, and I think day 4 of the festival. And it is Action Day, so all the films are action related. But oddly enough, the first one gets to qualify for the 31 Days of Horror, and that is the sci-fi action horror film Kill Command from the UK. Yes, essentially a story of a bunch of soldiers sent to a remote island for a training exercise where the training robots essentially decide that they want to kill these humans, and it's a fight for survival. Now the film is directed by Stephen Gomez, who honestly you're not gonna know the name. You just aren't. This is the first film he's ever directed, and his most notable credit, as far as I know, isn't even listed on IMDb, and I didn't even know about it. But it was mentioned at the festival that he was involved in the visual effects on Monsters, which, you know, the Gareth Edwards film, where essentially it really gets sold by the visual effects. The rest of it is kind of whatever. Yeah, so he was involved in that apparently. I'm just going by what they said, because he's not listed as being on it. But so, it's no surprise that if he has a visual effects background, which he does, that's what he, you know, you look at all his other credits and stuff like that, he's very much into the visual effects aspects of all the stuff he's worked in, that Kill Command would have some really good effects, right? And it does. And you know, it ranges. I mean, there are some where you can clearly tell this is some CGI going on here. It doesn't look great. Other aspects where it's like it's decent. You can still tell it's CG, but it's decent. And then there are scenes in the film where I couldn't tell for sure that it was purely CG, or if they had made animatronics or what. And I mean, there could have been a combination of CG and animatronics and stuff. So I don't know if it's a case of different different groups working on different scenes, and some being better than others, or if it's we spent more time trying to get certain important scenes to look really, really good, so we spent less time on these other scenes. And, you know, a lot of the worst scenes are kind of like filler background scenes type things that are just sort of there to pass the time and such. But yeah, if I was going to liken this film to anything, because it did have a very familiar feel to it. I mean, it's killer robots, right? So you can bring up the Terminator series, or even Screamers, where, you know, the military has created robots and those robots turn on you. And in this case, it's very much like, you know, the Terminator series, where the robots become, you know, essentially learning robots, and they decide that, you know, we need to kill humans. And obviously, so there are some relations to those types of films, but the feel of the film was very much like Dog Soldiers, another UK film, obviously enough, and you know, you get it. There are a bunch of soldiers, and they're going to a remote location, and Kill Command just happens to be also mostly forest, you know, just like Dog Soldiers. So you got soldiers in the forest, and then they're being hunted by something, right? And Dog Soldiers is werewolves, and Kill Command, it's killer robots. So it very much felt like that. Again, like I said, with the background storyline type thing of the like Terminator type things going on. So to say that I enjoyed it, well, yes, of course I did. I like Dog Soldiers, I like Terminator, I like Screamers, I like all those types of films. So this was, and considering that this was a very, very low budget for something of this magnitude. It's sci-fi, and sci-fi these days, you know, you look at everything, it's like it needs a big studio behind it for them to be able to pull off this stuff, because it's expensive. It's very expensive to pull off really, you know, grandiose type sci-fi. And this does, I mean, there are robots and stuff everywhere, and stuff like that. So a lot of visual effects in this film, a lot of, you know, practical effects as well. So, you know, kudos to them for pulling it off and making it look, for the most part. I mean, like I said, there's a few scenes and stuff that just they did not cut it. And if it was in a big Hollywood picture, they would have fired those guys. But because, you know, you're constrained by how much money and time you have, you can't just throw more people at it to try and get certain things done. You just gotta, you know, go with what you get, and hopefully, you know, if there's time to tweak things, you can. So I'm guessing that's what happened here. But it still worked. It was still like really fun. Lots of action. You know, guns, explosions, military stuff going, robots killing things and such. And then the story itself, though, you know, somewhat familiar, was still a little bit different, and you know, was entertaining as a result. I mean, there's a small cast, if you think about it, because it's just a group of soldiers. So, I mean, I could go over everybody, but there wasn't a lot of people of note to really point out to you. There is I guess you'd call him the leader of the soldiers, played by Tom McKay, who you might know from The Lost Legion or Wrong Turn 3. He's been in a bunch of other things. I think Hatfield and McCoys and stuff like that. But that's probably where you know, people watching this might know him from. You know, I'm guessing everybody's from the UK. And he's sort of like the leader of the soldiers. And attached to this group is Vanessa Kirby, who you may know from Jupiter Ascending, though you probably wouldn't recognize you know, her, you know, off to the side as a part. But she's also from Everest, so if you saw that, you would know who she is. She played Sandy Hill Pittman in that. But she is essentially a scientist. She's considered a tech. And what her big thing is she's got ocular implants, as well as some kind of computer implant that has, you know, networking abilities or something like that. So not only is her eyes are able to you know, show data and process data and use, you know, visual aspects for data collection and display, but because of her added computers and stuff, she is able to process data and collect data and access data and stuff like that. You know, it's not it's surprising that she's kind of robotic, so the soldiers who aren't robotic and who are being hunted by robots are kind of, you know, is she on our side? Is she on the side of the robots? Who does she work for? And obviously that storyline would play out there, but it isn't as important as I mean, they kind of make it out somewhat important, and it is a very cliche type of trope to put into a film, but they don't I mean, it's there, but it isn't really front and center like you would have thought it would be. So I would have been okay either way if they, you know, put it up there and was really, you know, heavy-handed with it, or if they just went with what was there and just let the film play out and let the action play out, which they kind of did. So yeah, there's a lot of visual stuff going on with her, and she is essentially she's the untrusted member of the group, as well as the person who has the most insight and knowledge about what's going on. So it's one of those give or take, right? Do you trust her? Well, even if you don't, you still need her type thing. So you know, keep her along for the ride, right? And there is another soldier of note who is, I think you could call him a sniper now. I believe he had ocular implants as well, which allowed him to see where the gun was pointing. So wherever the sight was going, he could see it. So he could, he could essentially be running backwards and still be, shooting guys and stuff like that, because he could see it through his ocular implants. So he was sort of like the go-between, right? And I think he was like a second in command, maybe. And so he was kind of the go-between between the untrustful soldiers and leader and this tech, and that was played by David Ajala, who was also in Jupiter Ascending, believe it or not, but is probably most known for most people from Fast and the Furious series as the Ivory character. I caught him right off the bat. I was like, I know who that is. And so, yeah, those are the three main characters of the group. But the nice thing about it, much like with Predators, with a group of soldiers going into a remote location type thing, they do try and give most of these soldiers sort of a look and an identity that is both somewhat unique and you can get behind them, so you can pick the guy you like the most, much like in Predator and stuff. Even though, yes, people start dying off right off the bat, you can still, and Aliens was another one, right? You can identify with somebody and be like, I'm rooting for that guy, and hopefully he makes it, type thing, right? Which was nice. I'm trying to think, what was else? There's the location was good. I really enjoyed where they were shooting. They kept it kind of three location-y type things. There's a forest, which they seem to just sort of keep going around in the same area. Then there was a bunker, so a very concrete type thing. And then they had this sort of abandoned city area, which I'm guessing was an industrial section that they used, green screens and stuff to build up and make it work for them. And allowed for a lot of squibs and a little bit of destruction that you might not get normally, right? So yeah, it's Kill Command. If you like action, you like killer robots, if you like the dog soldiers and that whole idea, I do recommend it. I would say if I'm gonna rate it, it'd be like a 3.5 out of 5. I mean, it isn't anything spectacular, don't get me wrong, but I mean, the trailer made it look really cheesy and corny, and to a certain extent it is, but the visual effects are just that good. And you know what? The acting is decent. The action sequences are really good. So you don't really feel the cheesiness of the film. It's not going to be for everybody. I mean, there's going to be critics on this film who will knock it. Don't get me wrong. I could hear them coming out of the theater. It's like nothing's ever perfect for them, right? And some of them just didn't quite understand it. Maybe they didn't pick up on the visual cues or whatever. It's not that they didn't understand it, but they didn't get certain scenes. And so, they had to find something at fault in this film. And yes, I mean, like it is, like I said, it isn't perfect, but it's really well done. Great action, lots of fun to watch, and that's what this is something that I would watch more than once. Like, I will buy this movie. I will buy the movie and add it to my collection because it is just that cool. And it's right up my alley. Horror, sci-fi, robots, almost like a post-apocalyptic type thing going on. That's right up my alley. I love that. So, yeah, Kill Command gets a recommend for me. Check it out if you can. And then, I wouldn't say blind buy it, but if you do enjoy it, purchase it and add it to your collection, because I know I am. Thanks for watching. Till next video, take care. Have a good one.